If I must starve, let it be in your arms. By Ignium 807. Chapter 10. Jaskier wakes to an empty bed. He pushes himself up and runs a hand down his face, glancing around the sunlit room. It's not a surprise to wake alone. Witchers rarely sleep past dawn. Shaking sleep out of his limbs, he notices a pile of his clothes by the door. Simpler than his usual, just a cotton shirt and a pair of pants he keeps around for long winter nights on the road. Geralt must have dropped them off. He shrugs on the clothes and shuffles into the main hall. Vesemir is reading a book by the window. Geralt and his brothers are gathered around one of the tables with an obscene amount of food piled in front of them, arguing loudly about ghouls. He drops onto the bench next to Geralt as Eskel declares, "That is not how it happened!" Jaskier picks a berry off of Geralt's plate and tosses it into his mouth, savoring what will likely be the last fresh fruit of the year. "What's going on?" "Lambert is telling lies about a nest of ghouls we took out when we were younger." Lambert throws a chunk of bread at his brother's head. "It did take you an hour." 20 minutes, Eskel insists. "At most." Geralt drops an arm around Jaskier's shoulder, lips dragging against the shell of his ear as he rumbles, "It took an hour." He catches the fork that whizzes past his ear without looking, hands moving so fast that Jaskier can barely see them. "Fuck you!" Eskel spits. "We were in training!" "Adieu was slow." Strong hands yank Jaskier away as Eskel leaps the table and tackles Geralt to the ground, cursing. "Let us talk, Bart," Vesemir says from behind him. "They need to work off some energy with unbreakable humans around." "They wouldn't let me," Jaskier argues, but he lets himself be led away all the same. Crashes and shouts echo from the dining hall as Vesemir brings him outside. A fire is blazing one of the pits, 2 plates of food set out next to it. This meeting was planned. Calculated. "Shit," Vesemir says, and Jaskier does. A hawk screeches in the distance, its cry rolling down the mountainside like thunder. Silence settles over their fire. Jaskier eats. Vesemir watches. Years ago, the quiet would have prompted Jaskier to speak, to say something to fill the air. He knows this game now. It is the game of silence Geralt has always played, and here sits the man who taught it to him. Jaskier can wait. The question, when it comes, is unexpected. "Are you a lover to all 3 of them?" "No, only Geralt." Vesemir nods as though Jaskier has confirmed something he already knew. "He cares for you a great deal." "I know." "Do you, Bart?" Harsh eyes rake over Jaskier's body, soft where witchers are hard, weak where witchers are strong. "Do you know what it means to hold the heart of not one of us, but 3? You could wreak destruction on this mountain with a few well-placed words, and no amount of silver or steel could stop you." Jaskier thinks of Eskel's terror after he killed the Bruxa, thinks of Lambert, eyes black and skin bloody, at Jaskier's feet, of Geralt and how many of his scars are from protecting Jaskier, from placing his body between Jaskier and a monster, uncaring how his own skin is marred, so long as Jaskier's is clean. "I could," he agrees, because it is true. "I won't." "No one seeks a witcher's love." "Yet here I sit." Jaskier meets Vesemir's gaze. He does not flinch. He does not look away. "What say you to that?" "I say you must have another reason. Information for those songs of yours. A notch in your belt." Jaskier itches to shout that Geralt is not a notch in his belt. If he were, Jaskier wouldn't be here. He would be a million miles away bragging, not staring down the closest thing Geralt has to a father on the side of a freezing mountain. But he knows that shouts, screams of indignation are not the way to go here. Jaskier needs Vesemir to understand, and understanding takes words. Calm. He steadies his voice and tilts his head to the sky, letting the winter sun warm his face. "Have you known joy, Vesemir?" The hawk screeches again. Its cry fills the silence where Vesemir's voice does not. Jaskier presses on. "Up here in these lonely halls? Have you known joy?" He drops his eyes from the sky and settles them on Vesemir's face, his expression unreadable. "I have," he says softly. "I have known joy so strong it stole the breath from my lungs." "You have a poet's heart."
I have a fool's heart.
Jaskier snaps. The words come out harsh, and that is how he meant them, like a dagger to the throat.
My fool's heart has been dragged across the coals more times than I can count, Witcher. I never learn. I hand it over to every lover who graces my bed, hoping that maybe this time will be the one that they do not tear to pieces.
He shakes his head, kicking at a piece of wood in the fire. The mountain air burns as he breathes it in.
I cut my heart out and dropped it at Geralt's feet the day I met him, bloody and raw like everything else he deals with. It would have been easy. So easy for him to tear me apart.
Jaskier snaps his head back up. He wants Vesemir to see the fire in his eyes.
I expected him to, you know. I saw those huge swords and that frown he always wears, and I figured, why not? If I'm going to die of heartbreak, why not let a witcher do the breaking? It'd make for a great ballad.
A wry smile flits across Jaskier's face.
No one had ever done that, I don't think. Bared themselves so easily to him. And what did he do?
Jaskier turns his hands to the open air in a gesture of amazement. Incredulity seeps into his voice.
He protected me. Saved me from a bunch of elves and a griffin after that, and more drowners than I can remember, and a million other monsters that would have had me. Some of them human.
Jaskier heaves in a long breath to steady himself.
I have known joy in Geralt's arms. Lambert's and Eskel's too. I am here for that. For them. Because they wanted me to come. Nothing more.
Jaskier stands. He shudders despite the chill of the fire, feeling drained. He picks up his plate, empty now. He turns to Vesemir, the man's face a wall of stone.
Thank you for the food,
he says quietly and leaves. Vesemir disappears after breakfast. Eskel isn't sure where he went or why Jaskier returned to the hall looking so rattled, but he knows Vesemir will return for dinner. He never could stay away from a decent meal. Their group is gathered around the table once more, mugs of ale in front of them. Eskel is still licking his wounds from the morning's fight, which Geralt only won because he was distracted, damn it! And Lambert is in the corner sharpening a sword. He decided that today was the day he would hone every sword in the armory. The low rasp of whetstone on steel ripples through the air like a song. Eskel has just begun a story about a siren he came across in Redania when Jaskier bolts up right from where he was slouching against Geralt. That reminds me! He scrambles out of his seat and moves towards the door, shouting, "1 second!" as he disappears around the corner. Flashes from last night creep into Eskel's mind as he watches him go, sitting on the edge of his bed, begging sleep to take him and knowing it won't. The smell of sunshine drifting from Geralt's room, reminding Eskel of all he wants but does not have the right to ask for. Jaskier was Geralt's first. No amount of yearning, no amount of misery or gritted teeth from Eskel would change that. He thought he could bear it. He had before for decades. But that was before he knew what touch could be, what intimacy could be. That was before Jaskier wormed his way into Eskel's bedroll and seared a brand onto his heart with soft words and scorching hands. Alone in his room, cold despite the fire, Eskel could feel the pull, feel the ache to go to Jaskier. But he knew he couldn't. He couldn't. And then Jaskier bursts into the hall, bringing with him a gust of cold air and an armload of stuff. He flops down next to Geralt again, allowing 2 of the bags he carries to clatter against the table, but setting down the last item carefully. Jaskier grins and pushes it across the table to Eskel. It's a black curved container with 2 brass clasps on one side. Eskel recognizes it instantly.
Why?
He asks, the question a pale echo of the first time he asked Jaskier why, in a room so far away from you.
It's for you!
Jaskier waves a hand at him impatiently. Go on, open it! Eskel flicks the clasps open and lifts the lid. Inside is a lute. He picks it up slowly, gingerly, as if it's an animal he might startle away. The instrument is a simple dark blue, its lines clean and without ornament, with a wide neck and strings spaced far enough apart for him to fit his fingers over them easily. It's slightly larger than the average lute, as if it were crafted specifically to be played by a larger man. In the stunned silence that follows, Lambert speaks up. I didn't know you played. Eskel turns the lute over in his hands with wonder.
I don't much, he says. But, Jaskier interjects, you have all winter to pick it up again, and you're just lucky enough to be stuck on the side of a mountain with the single best lute player on the continent, so I'm certain you'll be a master in no time. Words crowd up his throat, twisting into a ball that makes it hard to breathe, much less speak. It has been so long since someone gave Eskel a gift like this. A gift that isn't a weapon or a piece of armor. It's frivolous and a little bit silly. And Eskel decides in that moment that he will spend every day playing the damn thing if it makes Jaskier smile like he is right now. Thank you, he says gruffly. He means to say much more than that, but the words won't come out. From the glow in Jaskier's eyes, Eskel knows he understands. You're welcome. Jaskier unloads the other bags with enthusiasm. There is a stack of books in Elvish for Lambert, a jacket for Geralt with tiny hints of embroidery, the same silver as his hair, oils and non-offensive smells for baths in the hot spring, and a pile of sweets that Eskel is sure are there for Jaskier's own tastes instead of any sort of altruism. Geralt smirks a little when he sees the sweets. I told you we have food here. Look me in the eyes, Geralt, and tell me the witches of Kaer Morhen have a stockpile of expensive, nutritionless candy lying around somewhere. When no such assurance is forthcoming, Jaskier scoffs. That's what I thought. With everything distributed, the only item that remains on the table is a small satin bag. Jaskier tugs it open cautiously, and the sharp scent of nervousness works its way into the air. I wasn't sure if... Well, I'm still not sure, and obviously I don't have any expectations or anything ridiculous like that, but... Jaskier tips the content of the bag into his hand and closes his fist, shutting his eyes as he centers himself. I thought it would be convenient if we had some way to communicate. Besides the mage's notes, which I have noticed, thank you, because none of you idiots are all that subtle about sending them. Eskel feels a little abashed. He and the others did send notes whenever one of them left Jaskier, mostly to make sure he wouldn't be left unprotected for long. It must have been too much to ask that Jaskier not catch on. He's remarkably observant under all the jokes and silk doublets. Anyway, Jaskier continues. I hope I'm not being too presumptuous, and I promise not to be too annoying or anything. Jaskier, Eskel says. Show us. He nods sharply. Right, sure. Fine. Jaskier's fist opens to reveal a tangle of chains and flashing metal. They ring like bells as he drops them on the table, sorting through the pile before pushing a single charm towards each witcher. Eskel picks his up to turn it over in the firelight. The links are simple, yet sturdy. From the chain hangs a pendant crafted to look like a bird in flight. Magic radiates from the bird in waves. These are powerful, Jaskier. Lambert's voice is odd. What do they do? If the mage I got them from can be believed, they will allow us to speak even when we aren't together, across any distance, she said. It's Jaskier's voice, but the words aren't spoken aloud. They're in Eskel's mind, carried through the pendant in Jaskier's hand to the one in Eskel's, echoing through him like a physical presence. The witches turned to their rod in shock. Like I said, none of you have to use them. Eskel tunes out Jaskier's nervous rambling, choosing instead to drop the chain over his head and settle the swooping bird next to the wolf pendant that sits over his heart. Next to him, his brothers do the same. The cold metal warms quickly against his skin. I like it, he thinks. The message must go through because Jaskier shuts his mouth with a blap and shoots Eskel a tentative smile. Clever, Geralt murmurs. Lambert nods his agreement, looking overwhelmed. Eskel raises a hand to touch the bird through his shirt. Jaskier's gift is practical, yes, but it is more than that. It's a claim. The chains around their necks are a declaration of loyalty. Not just the witchers, but Jaskier's too. Their twin pendants a wordless announcement that they are bound together by choice, across any distance. At this time last winter, Eskel would have laughed off any man stupid enough to believe that a human would willingly bind themselves to a group of witchers. The very thought would have been ridiculous. Now, though, he watches Jaskier tease his brothers, making jokes and hurling insults down the magic that connects them, and his uncertainty crumbles to dust. Jaskier chose them. They chose him in return.
Lambert drags 2 proper mattresses into the room they've commandeered, replacing the old pallet with something more comfortable. The awkwardness from the previous night is gone. Sighs of contentment replace it as they settle down to sleep, limbs tangled together beneath thick wool blankets. Moonlight glints off the steel at their throats. 3 wolves with their bard tucked safely between them.